The American dream. Go to school, study hard, get a college degree, network in college, land a job with a firm handshake, nice smile, no tattoos on your neck. Seems pretty straightforward, right? But it turns out that the American dream was only a figment of our parents' imagination. And this American dream is turning out to be a nightmare for so much of my counterparts. It's similar to that of Neverland or Candy Island, places that we wish existed, but that's not the case. You will be retired by 60, right? Well, let's figure out just why the American dream is turning out to be a nightmare. So let's dive in, shall we? Now, before we can get to this retirement age, we have to first go to where it all started. Where did this conditioning start? First, second, third grade, for some of us maybe. You were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a police officer. I want to be a firefighter, a lawyer, doctor, judge. All these things, they're great in hindsight until you go back and you realize that most of these things you wanted to be were the only occupations that you knew of. You're then told to go to college because going to college is an investment in your future, and that's the only way that you can become these things that your eyes glue up when you mention. But you then realize that it's more like paying $40,000 to be broke in the cap and gown. Did you know that over 45 million Americans owe a combined $1.7 trillion in student loan debt? And the average borrower debt is around $37,000, according to the Federal Reserve, which isn't a bank, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. Now, college is a beautiful place, and you realize all these fees that add up, and most of these things you'll never use. Now, for myself, I went to the military and I was able to get college for free. But I was going through my student bill and I realized you pay for so much stuff that you really don't even use. You're paying for a new textbook, the 13th edition, but the 12th edition had the exact same knowledge. You only read 1 to 2 chapters. Now, I'm not going to come out and say college is a scam, but it is a place where you go to pay thousands to learn nothing about taxes, budgeting, how to save money, and also how not to die poor. Now, you may be saying, for my older audience viewers, you may be thinking, well, why complain? Adjust with the times, adjust with the times, adjust with the times. Now, I agree, but what happens when times aren't adjusting with us? Which leads me to my next point, inflation. Now, inflation is a very touchy topic. I even did a video on inflation. Click here to watch it. But inflation, well, I'm going to give you a little sample size. Let's play a game called Then versus Now. In 1980, the average cost of a home was around $47,000. Could you guess what the price was in 2023? $436,000. The average rent back then was $245. Guess what the average rent is now? Rent, not mortgage. The average rent in 2023, the end was $1,900. You may be thinking, well, of course, prices are going to go up. That's what happens. What about tuition? Right, $2,500 for tuition in 1980 is now roughly $10,000 at the end of 2023. Now I know it's 2025, Alonzo. What about 2024? Well, I'm assuming those numbers are still being calculated. That's why I didn't include those numbers. Now, what about the people who say inflation is going to happen? You have to adjust with the times. Since 2009, almost 43 states still have a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. Now, when I was in high school, X amount of years ago, I was working and I was making $7.50. Not to brag or nothing. But how are people going to outpace inflation when inflation is up almost X amount of percent? I'll put right here. That's outrageous. Now, I understand in order to have a well functioning society, you have to have classes low, middle, high. It has to be that way because if not, society wouldn't function right. Now, that's evil to say, but think about it. If the whole society was rich, you'd be paying $1 million for a carton of milk or something like that. And then I think, right, on a deeper level, if everybody was rich, no one would do the jobs that need to be done. Think about it. If you had the option, if I gave you an option right now to be a lawyer making around 150,000, $200,000 a year for a big firm up in New York or California somewhere, would you do that? Or I gave you the option of being the garbage truck man, entry level, by the way. Both these are entry level positions, but you're making 17.35 an hour. Which one would you choose? Everyone is obviously going to choose to be the lawyer because it's more money. More money equals more resources. So I understand it's on purpose. It has to be on purpose, right? It's no way that the government and Federal Reserve doesn't see the current state of our country. Or maybe I'm reading too deep into it, right? Let me know down in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Now, those large numbers are jarring, obviously. But you want to know a smaller number that's jarring than a $400,000 home? 23. What's so significant about 23? And no, I'm not talking about LeBron James or Michael Jordan. Only 23 states in the United States require personal finance to be taught. Now, I'm a numbers guy. Luckily for me, I have a little financial literacy. I could be mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment sections. Only 46% of the United States require personal finance to be taught. Now, I could be wrong, but that could be attributing to the $1.7 trillion in student loan debt. Now, I could be wrong. I could be, but I doubt it. We learned about all these powerhouses, right? You remember in class, we learned about animal cells, plant cells, cell walls, no cell walls, nucleuses, and the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. But what about the powerhouse of the United States? Why haven't we learned about the Federal Reserve? Why does only a select few people know about the Federal Reserve? No one talks about how interest rates are adjusted, the rate of inflation, 401ks. Half of my generation couldn't tell you what a 401k is. And sadly enough, that's the most case for most millennials as well. Investing, all these things, they're big new terms. And most people don't like to learn new things. So the older they get, they're stuck in their ways. And when they reach their retirement age, they have nothing to show for it. But I'm getting to the retirement age. Just stick with me a little bit longer. Most of my generation couldn't tell you the difference between a stock or a mutual fund, but they could tell you how to set up your TikTok shop or your Amazon registry or how to drop ship on Instagram. These are the things that they can tell you, but they still don't understand the complex system that is money. And the reason why, well, because older generations, they didn't understand how to talk about it. Now, myself, I'm first generation everything in my family. And it's a humble brag, but it's also terrifying. Four generations. My great grandmother, no investments, no stocks, nothing to show for it. My grandmother, no investments, no stocks to show for it. Granddad, mom, these things weren't taught to me, so I had to go out and learn on my own. So, how do people learn these things? It seems scary at first, but it's so fulfilling once you learn because you realize that money is a very powerful tool. And I don't blame them for not knowing because manual labor was the thing in southern Georgia. And by southern Georgia, I mean I'm closer to Alabama than I am to Florida. I remember picking pecans and picking peas out in the field, looking off in the distance, wondering, is this going to be my life in another 15, 20 years? Luckily, it wasn't. But these things aren't taught. And when they aren't taught, the cycle of poverty goes on and on and on and on. Now, I'm getting off topic, but stick with me for a little bit. Like going back to my elders, none of them believed in banks. And I think they had a somewhat understanding of why not to trust banks, but it was counterproductive because they had nothing to show or nothing to give once they did pass away. Now I know I'm trying to make this a sad video, but it's a grim reality when you realize that everybody's documenting their ignorance, their foolishness, their obtuse behavior because everyone's chasing the viral moment. Did you know that you need approximately or roughly 1.4 million views per month to even make minimum wage on YouTube. Safe to say that I'm a ways away. But luckily for me, this YouTube channel is more of a hobby. I like to just put my ideas out in the world and I just let them grow or fade into the backlog of videos that never get discovered on YouTube. Hopefully, this isn't one of those. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, let's talk about these simple steps, right? Contribute 6% of all your money to a savings account, preferably a high yield savings account. They're out there. You can do some research and find them. Max out your 401k with a 3% match from your company, 4 or 5, sometimes 6 or 7, depending on where you work. Shout out to my FANG employees. Invest in a mix of index funds with medium to high risk, something around the 10-11% interest, 10 to 11% gains per year. Also, what's next? Oh yeah, beat inflation. Pretty straightforward, and you will be a-okay. S&P 500 has a historical return rate of 8% conservatively, which is pretty good in the long run. And in 30 years, you'll be a millionaire. Who wouldn't want that in 30 years to be a millionaire? Well, inflation is knocking at your door, and in 30 years, $1 million may be the equivalent of $1. I have a challenge for you. Go and look up the true cost of $100 per state. And wherever you live, if you feel like you're going to be there in the next 100 years or so, think about how much $1 million, well, how far it would get you in said state. So where does that leave us? We were sold this American dream, but all we got was Sally Mae in a panic attack because we couldn't afford the American dream. But hey, you made it to your retirement age. Did you know that the retirement age was recently raised this year from 60 for men to 63 for men, and from 55 for women to 58 for women? Now, I don't know about you guys, but if you graduate high school at 17, 18 you go to college, 19 you go to college, 20 you go to college. If you work fast enough, you graduate by 20. So let's say 21 you're out. 20 more years, now you're 41 years old. If the current retirement age is 63 minus 41, how many more years do you have to work? Drop the answer in the comment section. It's a simple math problem. So now you're at this age and you're thinking, what do I do now? Because I mean, I have X amount of years left before I'm able to retire. 19 more years of just what, sitting around doing nothing? No, you have to keep working. You have to keep working. So you have to work two careers, basically 20 years with two different companies or the same company. You get your tenure, you may be on the board of directors by the time you retire. But it's just like that big gap. It's a big gap. It's a void. It's what my generation is feeling now. Well, the lower half anyway. The top half, we're waking up to see what's actually going on. I'm not saying it's a scam because I'm currently in college. I graduate May 5th with my bachelor's degree, and I'm pretty happy with my degree because I'm currently in my field. But for the majority of us who can't find a job in our field, what about them? What does that leave them? Because only so many will watch a video and only so many will retain the knowledge. And they will go back to their dead end job, working, going home, partying, working, going home, partying. And one day they may wake up and realize that they're too far gone in order to be saved. But only $50 a month in your Roth IRA could yield significant results in the next 5 to 10 years. Start somewhere. Learn what they didn't teach you. Read some books. We have something called Chatilius GPT right now. It's an AI. And these AIs know everything. They can summarize and give you a brief summary on how to set up your own personal investment account. They can be your own robo advisor on what index funds to buy, on how to set up recurring investments. All these things can be so simple, but only so many people will hear that. And I know retirement is like old people talk. Who cares about retirement? Well, when I look back and realize that I'm X amount of years removed from high school, it's scary, but it's also empowering. Like, it's been that fast already, and I've grown so much. I've done so much already in this short amount of time. I can't even imagine what 15 years from now look like. But I do know that it's going to be big. You should feel the same way when you look back and look at how far you've come. But think about how much further you can go when you get this financial literacy to achieve this American dream. But the American dream is for, I don't know, I guess 1900s. That's way back. What's your American dream? What's your American dream? Think about it, visualize it. But if you too feel like you're going through life without a tutorial, you're not alone. I'm right there with you. But hey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and come back for more content. I'll be back soon. Peace.